Hey everybody, let's talk about some of the things that look funny on a sleep study. There are a lot of things that can make the signals look weird or incorrect, and we'll talk about how that happens. Artifact are parts of a signal that we aren't looking for, something extra that has either covered up the signal we want or is obscuring our signal. There are many sources of artifact, but they're actually pretty easy to figure out if you think about it for a little while. So, first, let's look at a study that is pretty clean of artifact. Let's start with the EEG. So the EEG is very clean. These aren't very thick uh, lines. You can see individual waves happening. This person is falling asleep. Lots of big, nice alpha. And then right here it starts to attenuate, and you can start to see little waves. You've also got some slow rolling eye movements. The EEOG looks fine. The chin is relatively low. You see a nice heartbeat. The leg wires look okay. You want a little bit of background noise so that you can make sure that they're actually on and they're working. Um, and there's nothing wrong with these signals. They're nice up and down. So that's a pretty clean looking study. The next study is something that this record is also clean, and I specifically wanted to include this one because of the seizure activity. When EEGs are run, they include an EKG, just like we do, in part to check for EKG signals in the EEG. Sometimes the EKG can show up in the EEG signals, and they look like seizure spikes. But if you compare where the seizure spikes are and where the heartbeats are, they don't line up. For instance, here's a heartbeat, but the spikes are right behind it. The spikes are happening in the eyes as well as up here. See these spike and almost curvy waves. And a spike and a curvy wave, and a spike and a curvy wave. So they're all happening at the same time. If I take a pencil and I go up from each heartbeat, especially the QRS, that's where that's happening the most. We see that right there in the chin, we do have some EKG artifact. However, when these spikes are occurring, they're not occurring when the heartbeats are. And all of this is synchronized, meaning all of this is happening at the same time. So when these spikes are happening, they are happening at different times than the heartbeat. But we do have a little bit of EKG artifact there in the chin. But even before that even starts happening, you can see back here, this is nice alpha. This is also a 10-second window, which is how we read EEGs. This is alpha, and you can see there's no EKG artifact in that. So that's a real study. That's a lot of these that look like this are ones that I've run. But that is real, and that's how you can tell if something's real or not. If these are clean-looking waves, and the spikes do not occur when the heartbeats do. So this one, sometimes you'll see it. If you have a pure signal on the nasal pressure, that's what this is right here, nasal pressure, that's what we're looking at. You see these breaths, but then you see this real brown, thick stuff right here. If you line it up with the snore microphone, these are actually snores, and this is, I would consider this to be good artifact. It's showing you that the patient is in fact snoring. It's another confirmation that they're snoring, other than the snore microphone. Because look at the snore microphone. That and that and that and that all looks like it's either heartbeat or some other kind of artifact. Not exactly sure what that is, but that's That's some background noise on that snore microphone, and you can see that there are some darker areas of deflection there when the snores happen. So that's what that stuff is. A lot of labs have filters, and they don't include this stuff with the nasal pressure. They just want a nice up and down, where that can get rid of a lot of artifact, but it can also really mess up your signal too, so you're not really looking at real breaths. Here's bruxism. Bruxism is when you're grinding your teeth or clenching your jaw, and so this is going to affect EEG wires. Sometimes it's a little bit darker here. That kind of looks like a spindle, doesn't it? But it's happening. Right here you can see this is the chin, and it's really dark right there. It's also really dark right here. This is I1. And this one is the one that is, let's see, I believe it is down. I think that's I1. I can't really see it, but I1 is down closer to the jaw. And so it would make sense that the muscle artifact from grinding your teeth would show up in that electrode because it's pretty close. So you see it there. There's a little bit of thickening in the signals here. And back here you can really see it. This patient did something here. It looks like they might be clenching there. So that's what that is. These little bursts, and it's in the eye as well. There's also considerable EKG artifact. These are heartbeats showing up. And this is easy for me because it looks like the rhythm of a heartbeat. If it was really fast, that probably wouldn't be, but you can line all these up. And heartbeat or EKG artifact often shows up in the chin. It can sometimes show up in the leg movements. It can show up in a bunch of places. Sometimes you could notice that it might just show up in channels that have either M1 or M2. If it was showing up in M1, switch these over to M2, and that might get rid of it. If both M1 and M2 have artifact, you can use something called jumper cables, which connects both references on the head box, and that will increase the common mode rejection ratio, meaning common signals are taken out. So both of those big, strong heartbeats would be taken out, giving you a nice, clean baseline. Here's some more bruxism. It's showing up in the EEG this time. If you hold the size of your head just above your ears and a little bit forward, and you grind your teeth or you clench your teeth, you can feel the size of your head kind of moving. That's what we're looking at right here. One of the most common bits of artifact you're going to get is either tension on the wire, meaning the patient's rolling around and the wire is tight or taut, or the patient is grimacing with their face or moving in a way that makes their muscles tense up. And that's what all this stuff here is. The patient's probably moving their head. I think this says rolls right. So you've got the legs are moving to get themselves in position. You've got their head flopping around, so that's why these wires are going crazy. Some of them are probably being pulled on. That's why they're a little thicker. That could also be muscle tension. So this is either movement artifact, which could also include wire tension and muscle tension. It could be all of them. If we look closer, look at that. More EKG artifact in the chin, and there's some there in the I1 to M2. There's also snore artifact. Also, if you notice when they're moving, if you move around in bed, you'll notice your movements are moving your lungs, and so you can see the effort going crazy here too. And they're kind of holding their breath as they move. If you really, no one really told me this stuff. This is stuff that well, what's happening here? No air, but they're moving around and they're flexing their muscles. So it looks like they're holding their breath while they move. If you just think about the things that you're looking at and what do you think you would have to do with this equipment on to make a signal look like that? Here's more EKG artifact, and there's a lot of it. It looks like this is a M problem. M1, all of those have it, and M2 with the eyes also have it. So M1 is referenced to F4, C4, and O2 up here. They all have it, and the eyes have it as well. So I think this is probably going to be from the M's. Individual, FCs and O's are not going to have this kind of EKG artifact. It's going to come more from the M's. You also have lots of it. Chin. You also have this. Check this out. This is CZ to TZ. This is good for looking at certain things, but this wave goes from down here to up here, all the way up here. That's not real. That's just kind of funny looking, But this is either popping, where there's not enough gel or paste in the thing, and sometimes the pop can look like a spike. But this could also be popping. This could also be sweat artifact. Sweat artifact is when, there is salt in your sweat, and salt is conductive. So sometimes sweat will connect to electrodes, and that will cause this looking like voltage going crazy because it's connecting to electrodes, and the electricity is kind of going in between both of those places. So that makes it look like a giant wave. And it's more of a bipolar setup than a referential. But anyways, that could be popping or that could be sweat. This also looks like, they kind of look like big waves, like slow waves, right? But they're not. This is probably sweat or a popping artifact, something like that. So you've also got the EKG in the chin, and the eyes, the M's. Here's a lot more EKG artifact. Rampant in the eyes, and the chin, and the M's. This is not really a impedance problem where you haven't scrubbed hard enough. This is just placement. A lot of times if you're placing behind the ear, you've got to be high up, right near the hairline on the bone. If you go too far down beneath the ear, there's a lot of EKG artifact down there for some reason. There's either a blood vessel or some kind of pathway that really shows that up. So one thing you can do is you can actually, instead of using the mastoid bone for a reference, you can use the earlobes. There's nothing there. There's no electrical signals there. It's just blood pumping. So you're not going to get an EKG signal out of that. My boss used to do that, and he had some really great looking studies because he did that. So we've got EKG artifact. Also, check this out. That kind of looks like sweat artifact, right? Because it's kind of looking like a big wave, but it's not quite looking like this, where a sweat artifact would be going all over the place. This could be sweat artifact. But what I think this is, what else is happening when this wave happens? The eyes are clicking. This patient is in REM. This chin is way low. These are eye clicks, REM, and we've got low amplitude mixed frequency here. These are eye click artifacts. The patient is moving their eyes, and the EEG is picking that up. You will see that in REM, and you'll also see that when the patient is awake. So we've got tons of EKG artifact. This is not artifact, but it's just something to notice. The belts are out of phase, meaning this person is paradoxing. Even though they have a decent-looking CPAP flow, they're still paradoxing. So that's an indication of more obstruction occurring. Believe that's all the artifact there. This could be sweat, or it could be electrode popping, but this definitely looks like eye movements. This happens before the eye movement, so I don't think that's what that is. But this happens right there. It's artifact. That's the main takeaway. If that's the thing about artifact is, if there is a chance that this is not real, then I wouldn't give it much credit towards being real. That's why you want 6 hours of data. You want to get enough good data that's artifact free to show, yeah, this stuff is super real. That's kind of the difference between a good study and a bad study. How easy is it to prove all this stuff? And the more data you have that's good, the more data you're going to have to prove it. And that brings up another point. I talked about EKG artifact and how you can either put it on the earlobes or move it higher on the mastoid bone to fix this problem. Sometimes you can't fix EKG artifact. It's just going to be there. There are other artifacts you can't fix, like bruxism. You could change the filter settings, but then you're changing the pure signal of the EEG. So we really don't want to change the filter settings unless we absolutely have to. So bruxism you can't really fix. Snoring artifacts isn't something you really want to fix unless it's with, CPAP. But that's not really what we're talking about. Let's see. Here's some more eye blink artifact. Up here in the FPs. Those FPs are right next to the eyes, so it makes sense that they would deflect when the eyes are deflecting. So right here, this one, and this one are showing eye deflections. And they're above the eye, so you're getting... sometimes we'll do that. We'll have 3 points of reference on each side, one above and one below. And that'll give you more eye movements, because these pick up, up and down really well, and sometimes not side to side, but these will pick up side to side, not really up and down. So you've got benefits to both, but this is eye blink artifact. Also, the FP1, check this out. FP1 to C3, FP1 to T7. It's got kind of a thick line, right? That looks sort of like 60 hertz artifact, or this could be tension on the wire, just a single wire. I usually bundle my wires pretty good, so I think this is, it could be tension on the wire, or 60 hertz. 60 hertz could also look like you haven't scrubbed enough, and that probably is what's happening here. There's probably an impedance on this channel right here. To fix that, scrub it a little bit better. You could also take down the high pass filter. High pass filter is going to filter out high frequencies, and 60 hertz frequency is a high frequency for us. And muscles operate on a very high frequency. When a muscle twitches, it's really fast. That's why it looks like when we have a muscle movement in the legs, it looks just like a blob. We're not seeing waves because they happen so fast. Other than that, you have alpha, and that looks like it's showing up in the eye movements, which is interesting. I think that's it for this one. Here's some more eye movements. You can see in the F3 and F4, they're blinking there. That kind of is what a blink looks like. You sometimes will see it better on one eye than another. Here they're clicking their eyes, and that looks kind of just like that. But we're seeing it from above, from the Fs, instead of from the sides. That's why we're seeing this motion instead of this motion. More eye clicks. Here, well, you can't really see it very well, but it's kind of squared off right there, right? Those waves are so big, that is pin blocking. If this was, a paper machine and this thing's drumming along and then all of a sudden they wake up and burp, 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 this pin can only go so far. So the pin will hit the maximum region that it can go and just hold it there until another voltage comes where it can move again. That looks about it for this one. Eye movement or eye blink artifact. Shows up in the EEG, closest to the eyes usually. Here's more pin blocking. This is someone is awake, and this is the eye movements are they're looking at something, and it's so much amplitude that it goes past where the pin can actually write. So that's the squared off part. That's the upper and lower margin of this channel. That's where the pin's able to move. And you can get this on the computer too, just to make it kind of look more cleaner and keep the signals in their own channels. But I generally turn pin blocking on because I want to see the whole wave. Other than that, this looks like a pretty clean looking record. There might be some EKG artifact, little tiny blips there. The heartbeat's very regular, usually. And when it's regular like that, you can pick it out pretty quickly. More pin blocking. This looks like their EEG. And it looks probably like this person is moving, excessive muscle activity. It looks like they're probably moving around, so you got muscle tension or tension on the wires that makes it look thick. And when they move around so much, the amplitude becomes so great that it blocks the pin from moving any further. Check out these lines. All the other ones were pretty clean. These are pretty dark and thick, right? This looks like it might be some eye blink artifact here. Eye movements. You got a little blips of EKG artifact there. This is really thick. This looks either like muscle tension or that like they're awake, so they might still be tense. They're not relaxing their face. It's kind of remarkable if you figure out that you've been making a face for a while at someone and then you don't realize it, and then you relax your face. This is before you relax your face. This is kind of what it looks like. They're very tense. So this is either tension on the wires, they have tension in their face. Or this could be 60 hertz where you haven't scrubbed enough. Any of those could be it. Alright, here's some decent sweat artifact. And this kind of looks like just slow waves. But these are not slow waves. They are just too big and they're going crazy. You see these tiny waves riding on these big waves. If these were real slow waves, they would be very straight, and some of these look like it, but they still have these little waves riding on it. And that's one way you can tell the difference between real delta waves and sweat artifact. Sometimes the sweat artifact can get really bad, and it's just all the waves are going crazy along the way. To fix sweat artifact, you can cool off the room with a fan or AC, take away some of the blankets, something like that. We also have EKG artifact here in the chin and some in the EOG. It looks like some in the EEG, but it's kind of all crazy, so you can't really tell very well. Cardioballistic artifact. Let's break it down. Cardio is your heart. Ballistic, like a missile. Um, so that means that the heart is pumping, right? We have a blood pressure, and you can feel a pulse. That is a cardioballistic thing. The blood is pumping, and you can feel it when you give it a little resistance. So here, this is a CPAP flow, and the mask is on really well. And because of that, the let's see, if you hold your hand really tight, or if you get something, or a band-aid, if you put a band-aid on too tight and you can feel your heartbeat in your finger, that's what's happening here. This is the CPAP airflow. And you see these little dip, 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 dip. That is cardioballistic airflow, or artifact. That's when the heartbeat is showing up physically through the CPAP flow, because it is the mask might be on too tight. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as the patient is comfortable. It looks also like something interesting. Check this out. O2 is a little dark. O1's okay. C4 is a little dark. C3's pretty clean. F4 is dark. F3 is clean. Right eye is dark. Left eye is clean. What is the common electrode between the dark signals? M1, 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 M1. Looks like M1 there's either tension on the wire, or they need to scrub it a little better. Or you can re-reference all this stuff to M2, and you might have a clean looking signal like that. That's one way to get rid of that. Cardioballistic artifacts, not really something you can get rid of. You just need to know this is normal. This isn't like them trying to take tiny breaths or anything like that. That's just something that happens. This is also cardioballistic artifact. In the CPAP flow, you got these little, it kind of looks like they're trying to start a breath, but they're not. This is just their heartbeat is coming through, and you can almost see some little bumps in the effort, but that could just be the belts aren't tight enough. They're not tight enough, so they're not getting a very good signal. But that could also be cardioballistic artifact. That's when the heartbeat is showing up physically. They can probably feel it like a band-aid. That looks about it on that slide. And here is not a very good one, but this is 60 hertz artifact. You see these just absolutely dark, thick, black signals. And then here, they go away. This is 60 hertz artifact. 60 hertz because current in the United States from the wall, power sources, things like that, are alternate current, and they run on 60 hertz frequency. So whenever the patient is laying on a charger, or especially a heated blanket, those are the worst. That's what it looks like. That is electrical interference with your signals, and that electrical signal is so great that it certainly overpowers it. You can either, generally when sleep studies are run, the notch filter or the 60 hertz artifact filter, basically. It tries to get rid of all 60 hertz frequencies in the study. Notch filter. Generally, everywhere I've worked, theirs are on all the time. You don't really want to have them on if you can help it, but there's so much electricity running through the walls and just everywhere that you can't really get away with not having it. So that's the way you can get rid of it. If you look at it, it kind of looks like you need to scrub harder too, or the wire is falling off. That would also be 60 hertz artifact, because if you don't scrub hard enough, or if the wire is falling off, the electrode is picking up the signals in the environment instead of the person. And so if you look at one when you've taken it all the way off, it's just a thick black line because the environment is just in so much electrical flux that it's picking up just absolutely everything. So these wires are coming off, there's tension or something like that, and that's what 60 hertz artifact is, usually what you'll see the most. How can you tell if it's truly 60 hertz artifact? Well, 60 hertz means something is happening 60 times a second. If your computer program can do it, you can make a 1 second window. And then you can count each one of these little black waves. And you should come up with 60 in 1 second. That would be 60 hertz artifact. That's a fun way to do it, but you can do it that way. All right, that's a lot of artifact stuff. The more you look at it and the more you try and figure it out, the better. But the key is, if you see artifact, you document it. If you know what it is, or you think you know what it is, try and fix it. Because the cleaner studies just make for so much better studies, and you'll feel great if you run clean studies, because they're just really nice to look at. All right, see you next time.